The moment my mother smiled at my sister during the will reading, I knew this wasn't about money. It was about erasing me. My name is Aria Caldwell. I'm 31 years old, and I work as an architectural designer in Seattle. And the day my grandmother's will was read, my family decided, very calmly, that I no longer belonged. Let me take you back to that room. The conference table was too shiny. The air smelled like lemon polish and old paper. Everyone sat perfectly straight, like posture alone could hide guilt. My mother sat at the head of the table, confident, relaxed. My younger sister, Natalie, sat beside her, fingers wrapped around a porcelain coffee cup she didn't even drink from. She wore a cream blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent.
She didn't look at me.
Not once. I sat at the far end, alone. No lawyer beside me. No comforting hand. Just silence. The attorney, a man with silver hair and tired eyes, cleared his throat. And before he could even begin, my mother leaned forward. That's when I knew something was wrong. She smiled, the kind of smile that looks kind but feels sharp, and she said, "Let's start with the primary inheritance." Natalie finally looked at me then, and she smiled back. The lawyer announced that my sister would inherit $12.8 million from our grandmother's estate. Real estate, investment accounts, art, everything. People murmured congratulations. My aunt dabbed her eyes. My uncle nodded like this was inevitable. Natalie squeezed my mom's hand and whispered, "I told you." Then the lawyer paused. He looked down at his papers. Then he looked at me, and before he could speak, my father cut in. "Aria won't be receiving anything," he said flatly. "No warning. No explanation. Just nothing." My mother nodded, as if this had already been discussed.
As if it were settled law.
"She made her choices," my mom added. "She left. She didn't prioritize family. Grandma was very clear." I felt something cold crawl up my spine. The lawyer didn't say a word, but my parents kept going. They spoke for my grandmother. They rewrote her voice. They turned her love into punishment. "You wanted independence," my father said, shrugging. "So here it is." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. Because here's what they didn't know. My grandmother and I spoke 3 days before she died. And she told me something that didn't match the story at all. But I kept my face blank. I let them think they'd won. Because revenge is better served when no one sees it coming. The lawyer finally spoke again. But not yet. Not the part that mattered. First, he said something that made my mother stiffen slightly. "There are additional instructions," he said. My sister rolled her eyes. Like this was just paperwork. But my grandmother was never just paperwork. She was precise. She was strategic. And she never forgot who stood by her when everyone else walked away. "Hold on, before we get into the real stuff, I want to know, what are you doing right now while hearing my voice? Are you alone? Driving? Lying in bed?" Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Because what happened next changed everything. The lawyer slid a second envelope onto the table. This one wasn't thick. It wasn't flashy. But my name was on it.
Typed.
Centered. Impossible to ignore. My mother's smile froze. My sister leaned forward. Just slightly. And for the first time that day, the room went completely silent. The envelope with my name on it wasn't supposed to exist. And the second my mother saw it, her fingers tightened like she wanted to crush paper and me at the same time. The lawyer didn't open it right away. That pause? It was deliberate. He adjusted his glasses, glanced at my parents, then at my sister. And finally, he looked at me. "Miss Caldwell," he said carefully, "before I proceed, I need to confirm. Did you receive any communication from your grandmother shortly before her passing?" My mother snapped her head toward me. "What kind of question is that?" she said sharply. Natalie laughed. Too loud. Too fast. "Grandma was very sick," she said. She barely knew what day it was. That was a lie. And we all knew it. I met the lawyer's eyes. "Yes," I said calmly. "I did." The room shifted. Not dramatically. Subtly. like a crack forming in glass. My father cleared his throat. "That's irrelevant," he said. "The will is clear." The lawyer didn't respond to him. Instead, he placed one hand on the envelope with my name. "This document," he said, "was prepared separately from the main will, at your grandmother's direct request." My mother stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "There is no separate document," she said, voice tight. "We went over everything." The lawyer's expression hardened. Not angry, just professional. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said, "this document was filed with the court 2 weeks before your mother's passing. It is legally binding." Natalie's smile disappeared. She leaned toward my mom and whispered something I couldn't hear, but I could read her lips. This wasn't supposed to happen. I felt my heart start to race, but I didn't show it, because this wasn't victory yet. This was just the door creaking open. The lawyer finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single page.
Typed. Signed.
Dated. He read aloud. "To my granddaughter, Aria. If you are hearing this, then I am gone. And if the people in that room are telling you that I left you nothing, then they are lying." My mother gasped. Not a soft gasp. A sharp, offended one. "That is not her language," she snapped. "She would never say that." The lawyer continued. "Aria, you are the only one who came to see me when I was sick without asking for anything. You were the only one who listened, the only one who helped when no one was watching." I swallowed hard, because I remembered those nights, sleeping in a chair by her bed, feeding her soup, holding her hand when the pain got bad. No one else was there. The lawyer's voice stayed steady. "I know my daughter. I know her priorities. And I know what she'll try to do after I'm gone." My mother's face went pale. My father sat down slowly. Natalie shook her head. "This is manipulation," she said. She was confused. The lawyer didn't even look at her. "Aria," he read, "I am not leaving you money the way I'm leaving it to Natalie. I am leaving you something else. Something more important." The room leaned forward, even my parents, because now they were curious. And curiosity is dangerous when you're guilty. The lawyer paused, then said the words that made my sister's breath catch. "I am leaving Aria's sole ownership of the Lakewood property, including all mineral, commercial, and development rights." Silence.
Pure.
Heavy.
Deadly.
My mother blinked. The Lakewood property?" she asked slowly. Natalie frowned. "That old land by the highway?" she scoffed. "It's worthless." The lawyer looked up, and for the first time he smiled. "Actually," he said, "it was rezoned 6 months ago." My sister stiffened. The lawyer continued, calm as a surgeon. "It is now classified for mixed-use commercial development, based on current market projections." He glanced at the paper. "The estimated value is $18 to $22 million. Natalie stood up so fast her coffee spilled. "That's impossible," she said, voice shaking. "That land was supposed to be included in the main estate." My mother's eyes locked onto me, and in them I saw it.
Fear.
Because now she understood. This wasn't an accident. This was a setup. And my grandmother had planned it perfectly. But the lawyer wasn't done yet. He turned the page and said, "There is one more clause." That's when Natalie screamed. Not yet from rage, from panic. Because she knew whatever was coming next was going to hurt. My sister's scream didn't come from anger. It came from realization. The lawyer raised his hand, not to silence her, but to protect the words that were about to land like a verdict. "Please," he said calmly, "let me finish." Natalie's chest was rising too fast now. My mother reached for her arm, whispering, "It's fine. We'll fix this." But some things can't be fixed, only exposed. The lawyer adjusted the paper and continued reading. In addition to the Lakewood property, he said, "I have included a conditional clause regarding the remainder of my estate." My father leaned forward. His face had gone gray. "What condition?" he asked. The lawyer didn't answer him right away. He read directly from the page. "If, during the will reading, my daughter or granddaughter attempt to misrepresent my intentions, deny Aria's role in my life, or publicly claim that I disowned her." My mother froze. Then the following redistribution shall take effect immediately. Natalie's hand slipped from her mother's arm. What redistribution? She whispered. The lawyer finally looked up and said the sentence that changed the room forever. Natalie Caldwell's inheritance will be placed in a temporary legal freeze pending review of misrepresentation and coercion. My sister screamed, a sharp, broken sound that echoed off the walls. No, this is insane, she cried. Mom, do something. My mother lunged forward. This is fraudulent, she shouted. You can't punish us for speaking. The lawyer remained calm. This clause is enforceable, he said. Your mother had extensive documentation, recordings, messages, medical attestations. Recordings. That word hit like a hammer. My mother staggered back into her chair. Natalie's face twisted. She didn't know what she was doing, she said desperately. She was sick. The lawyer nodded, which is why she documented everything. He turned another page. I have recorded conversations in which my daughter discusses handling the will while I was hospitalized, he read. My father's head dropped. Natalie shook her head over and over. She wouldn't. I have emails where Natalie discusses how much she will receive once Aria is out of the picture. That did it. Natalie collapsed into her chair. My mother's voice broke. Aria, she said suddenly, turning to me. Sweetheart, this is all a misunderstanding. Ah, there it was. The pivot. I didn't respond, because this wasn't the moment to speak. The lawyer wasn't done. Aria, he continued, if you are hearing this, then you already know the truth. I trust you to decide what happens next. He folded the paper and looked directly at me. Ms. Caldwell, he said, you are now the sole decision-maker regarding whether this clause is activated permanently. The room exploded. My mother stood up again, hands shaking. You can't do this to us, she cried. She's turning you against your own family. Natalie looked at me with wild eyes. You don't understand what you're doing, she said. This will destroy everything. I finally spoke. No, I said quietly. It already did. Silence fell. I stood slowly. Every eye locked on me. You said Grandma was done with me. I continued. You said I chose my career over family. My voice didn't shake. But you never once visited her. You never once asked how she was doing. My mother opened her mouth. I raised my hand. I slept in that hospital room, I said. I held her hand. I listened when she was scared. Natalie looked away. She told me you'd try to rewrite her, I said. She told me you'd pretend she didn't know what she was doing. The lawyer nodded slightly. My mother's voice cracked. Aria, please. That word, please. She hadn't used it in years. I looked at my sister. The sister who got everything. The sister who smiled while I was erased. I haven't decided anything yet, I said. Natalie lunged toward me. Then don't, she begged. We can talk. We can fix this. But her hands were shaking because she knew this wasn't about money anymore. This was about truth. And the truth was now on paper, recorded, signed, and sealed. The lawyer cleared his throat. There is one final element, he said, but it cannot be read unless Miss Caldwell authorizes it. My mother's head snapped up. What element? She demanded. The lawyer looked at me. A sealed audio file. My sister let out a strangled sound because that file contained my grandmother's voice, and what she said in it would decide who walked out of that room with everything and who walked out with nothing. The room didn't wait for my answer. It held its breath. Every eye was on me. Not the lawyer. Not the documents. Me. The sealed audio file sat on the table like a loaded weapon. My mother was the first to break. Aria, she said softly, stepping toward me, palms open like she was approaching a frightened animal. You don't need to do this. Whatever Mom said, it was private. Family matters stay in the family. Natalie nodded furiously. Yes, exactly. Playing that would just humiliate people. What's the point? The point? I almost laughed. I looked at the lawyer. Before I decide, I said, tell me something. He nodded. If I authorize it, can it be stopped halfway? No, he replied. Once it begins, it must be played in full. That was your grandmother's instruction.
Of course it was.
My grandmother hated interruptions, hated half-truths even more. My father finally spoke, voice low. Arya, think carefully. This could damage relationships permanently. I met his eyes. What relationship? I asked. He flinched. The lawyer slid the small recorder closer to me. Black. Unmarked. Simple. My mother's breathing grew shallow. Arya, she whispered. I am still your mother. That almost worked. Almost. Then I remembered her voice earlier. Cold.
Certain.
She chose her career over family. I placed my hand on the recorder. I authorize it, I said. Natalie screamed. No, wait.
Click.
The sound of the button echoed louder than it should have. Then static. Then a voice. Weak, but unmistakable. My grandmother. If you're hearing this, she said, then they didn't listen to me while I was alive. My mother collapsed into her chair. Natalie covered her mouth. The voice continued. I want this recorded because I know exactly what my daughter will try to do. My father stared at the table. She will say Arya abandoned us. She will say I was disappointed in her. My grandmother coughed softly. That is a lie. Natalie shook her head violently. Arya was the only one who asked me what I wanted, not what I owned. Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't wipe them. I heard my daughter on the phone, discussing how to make sure Arya was handled before the will. My mother let out a broken sob. I heard Natalie laugh and say, she won't fight it. She never does. Natalie stood up. That's not. I am not confused, the voice said, stronger now. I am hurt, and I am done being manipulated. The lawyer watched silently. If you are in that room, Arya, my grandmother continued, I want you to remember this. The static crackled. They never thought you were weak. They thought you were quiet. My hands trembled. Prove them wrong.
Click.
Silence. Not the awkward kind. The devastating kind. Natalie slid down into her chair, shaking. My mother stared straight ahead, eyes empty. My father whispered, Oh my God. The lawyer was the first to speak. The recording will be entered into evidence, he said calmly. Effective immediately. The misrepresentation clause is fully activated. Natalie jumped up. You can't do this, she screamed.
Mom.
Say something. My mother didn't move, because now there was nothing left to say. The lawyer continued. Natalie Caldwell's inheritance is frozen indefinitely. Pending investigation, it may be forfeited entirely. Natalie turned to me. You wanted revenge, she hissed. Congratulations. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. I wanted the truth. The lawyer gathered the papers. One final matter remains, he said. My heart skipped. What? My mother croaked. The lawyer looked at me. Your grandmother appointed you executor of the estate, he said, which means you control all legal decisions moving forward. Natalie laughed hysterically. This is insane, she said. She'll ruin everything. I met her gaze. No, I said quietly. I'll fix it. The lawyer stood. This meeting is adjourned, he said. Further communication will go through Miss Caldwell. He nodded to me, and just like that, the power shifted. But as everyone stood to leave, my mother finally turned to me. Her eyes were red, her voice barely a whisper. You think this is over, she said. It's not. I looked at her. Oh, I replied. I know, because the real revenge was just beginning. The moment I became executor, I stopped being their daughter. I became their problem. The hallway outside the conference room felt colder than it had before. People avoided my eyes. Whispers followed me like shadows. My mother walked beside me in silence. Not pleading now. Calculating. Natalie trailed behind us, heels clicking too fast, like she was trying to outrun something that had already caught her. The lawyer stopped me near the elevator. Miss Caldwell, he said quietly, from this moment forward, any attempt to interfere with the estate will carry legal consequences. My mother smiled tightly. Of course, she said. We would never.
The doors closed.
The silence inside that elevator was suffocating. Natalie broke it first. "You planned this," she spat. "You've been playing innocent for years." I didn't answer, because explaining yourself to people who already decided to hate you is a waste of breath. When the doors opened, my mother finally turned to me.
"We need to talk," she said.
Privately. "No," I replied. "We need boundaries." That word hit her harder than any accusation. We stepped outside into the gray afternoon. Seattle rain misted the sidewalk. Natalie grabbed my arm. "You don't understand the consequences," she hissed. "If my inheritance is gone, everything collapses." I gently removed her hand. "Then you should have thought about that," I said, before lying. Her face twisted. "You were never supposed to matter," she said without thinking. The second the words left her mouth, she knew. My mother's head snapped toward her. "Natalie," she warned. But it was too late, because now I knew exactly where I stood. That night, I went back to my apartment. The smallest place I'd ever lived. The place they used to mock. I sat on the floor, documents spread around me. Executor, sole decision-maker, owner of the most valuable undeveloped land in the county. And suddenly, very alone, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Then another. Then 10 more. Voicemails. Texts. Missed calls. Relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly remembered my name. "We're so proud of you. Family is everything. Let's talk." I deleted them all. At midnight, a single email came through. From Natalie. Subject: "We need to fix this." I didn't open it, because my grandmother's words echoed in my head. "They thought you were quiet." The next morning, I met with the lawyer again. "There's something you should know," he said. He slid a file across the table. "2 weeks before your grandmother died," he continued, "your mother attempted to amend the will." My stomach dropped. "Why didn't it go through?" I asked. "Because your grandmother refused to sign," he said. "And because she recorded the attempt." Another recording. Another truth waiting. The lawyer leaned back. "She was protecting you." I nodded slowly. That afternoon, I received a legal notice. Natalie had hired her own attorney. She was contesting the freeze, claiming emotional distress, claiming undue influence,
Claiming me.
My mother, of course, stood beside her. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, from clarity. They weren't done, and neither was I. So I made my first move. I authorized a full audit of the estate. Every account, every transfer, every signature. The lawyer called me 3 days later. "Aria," he said carefully, "you were right to do this." My heart pounded. "What did you find?" There was a pause. Then, "Large sums were moved out of your grandmother's accounts over the past year," he said, "into accounts connected to your mother and sister." The air left my lungs. "That's theft," I whispered. "Yes," he said, "and it gets worse." I gripped the phone. "They used your grandmother's declining health to justify the transfers," he continued. "But the documentation is weak."
Meaning?
Meaning they thought no one would look. Meaning they never expected me. The lawyer exhaled. "If this goes to court," he said, "they could lose everything." I closed my eyes. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice. But justice has a price. And my mother was about to pay it, because the next step would force them to choose, confess, or fall. I gave them one chance. They used it to lie. The lawyer advised caution. "Once this moves forward," he warned, "there's no undoing it." I understood that. But what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that my mother had already crossed the line long before the will was ever read. 2 days after the audit results came in, I requested a private meeting. Neutral location. Conference room. Witness present. My mother arrived first. Perfect posture. Calm face. Like this was just another board meeting. Natalie came in 10 minutes late.
Sunglasses on.
Hands shaking. I waited until we were all seated. "I'll be direct," I said. "The audit found unauthorized transfers." My mother sighed dramatically. "This again," she said. Aria, you're misinterpreting. I slid a printed bank statement across the table. Highlighted. Dates circled. Natalie froze. My mother picked it up, scanned it, then smiled. That money was for caregiving expenses, she said smoothly. Legal fees. Household support. I nodded. Then why was it transferred to Natalie's personal account? I asked. Natalie snapped her head up. I didn't. I placed another document on the table. Her signature stared back at her. The room went very quiet. My mother's jaw tightened. You're trying to punish us, she said. Because you're angry. No, I replied. I'm trying to understand where $3.4 million went. Natalie stood up. This is harassment, she cried. You're abusing your position. I didn't raise my voice. I haven't even filed yet, I said. This is still private. That's when my mother leaned forward and dropped the mask. If you proceed, she said coldly, you will lose your family forever. There it was, the threat she'd always used. I looked at her, really looked. You already decided I wasn't family, I said. Remember? Natalie laughed bitterly. You think you're better than us now, she said, because you got lucky. I shook my head. No, I said, because Grandma trusted me. My mother stood. We're done here, she snapped. You'll hear from our attorneys. They walked out. No apology. No explanation. Just certainty. That night, I sat alone in my apartment again. But this time, I wasn't shaking. I drafted the formal notice. Fraud. Misrepresentation. Financial abuse of an elder. When I hit send, I didn't feel powerful. I felt sad. The next week was chaos. Legal filings. Subpoenas. Phone calls from relatives who suddenly had opinions. Natalie posted vague quotes online. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. Some people destroy families for money. My mother stayed silent until the call came. Unknown number. I answered. Aria, she said quietly. Please. That word again. I'm listening, I said. We can make this go away, she whispered. We'll return the money. How much? I asked. A pause. Most of it, she said. I closed my eyes. That's not how accountability works, I replied. Her voice sharpened. You're enjoying this. No, I said. You are. She hung up. 2 days later, Natalie was served. She showed up at my door that night, crying, broken. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said. Mom handled everything. I just signed. I studied her. Did you spend the money? I asked. She nodded. Silence stretched between us. Then tell the truth, I said. All of it. She hesitated. Mom told me Grandma wouldn't last the year, she whispered. She said we had to move fast. Something inside me hardened. That statement alone was enough to end everything. The next morning, the lawyer called. Aria, he said, your mother's accounts have been frozen. I exhaled slowly. And Natalie? I asked. She's cooperating, he said. For now. For now. Because cooperation doesn't erase consequences. And the court date was finally set. That was when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just my revenge story. This was my transformation. And when we walked into that courtroom, only one of us would walk out whole. Court doesn't care who raised you. It only cares who can prove the truth. The morning of the hearing, the courthouse felt unreal. Cold stone, high ceilings, echoing footsteps, like a place designed to strip emotion away. My mother sat at the defense table in a navy suit she used to wear to charity galas. Natalie sat beside her, smaller now, quieter. No sunglasses today. I sat across the room with my attorney, not as their daughter, not as their sister, as the executor. The judge entered. Everyone stood. And just like that, years of manipulation were reduced to documents and testimony. The prosecution started with the financial trail. Bank transfers, email chains, signatures. One by one, the story assembled itself in public. My mother's attorney tried to spin it. Care expenses, he said. Family agreements. But then the recordings came in. My grandmother's voice, Clearer now. Stronger. The courtroom listened. Natalie stared at the floor. My mother stared straight ahead. Then it was Natalie's turn. She took the stand. Her voice shook. She told me it was temporary, Natalie said. That Grandma wanted us to manage things quietly. The judge raised an eyebrow. And did your grandmother tell you that herself? Natalie swallowed.
No.
That one word echoed. The courtroom shifted. Then my mother stood, confident, controlled. I never forced my mother, she said. I only helped. The prosecutor leaned forward. Did you discuss removing Arya from the will? He asked. My mother hesitated. Just long enough. Yes, she said, but only because Arya had distanced herself. My lawyer stood. Permission to play Exhibit C. The judge nodded. Another recording. My mother's voice this time. Casual.
Certain.
Once Arya's out, she said on tape. Everything stays clean. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. My mother's face went white. Natalie burst into tears. The judge stopped the playback. That will be enough, he said. Recess was called. In the hallway, Natalie collapsed against the wall. I didn't know she recorded that, she sobbed. I watched from across the room. No satisfaction. Just closure forming slowly. When court resumed, the judge didn't waste time. The evidence indicates sustained financial abuse, he said, and deliberate misrepresentation. He looked at my mother. Mrs. Caldwell, you abused a position of trust. My mother's lips trembled. Natalie's attorney whispered urgently to her. Then Natalie stood up. I want to amend my statement, she said. The courtroom froze. My mother turned sharply. Natalie, she hissed. I'll tell the truth, Natalie said, tears streaming. All of it. My heart pounded. The judge nodded. Proceed. Natalie's voice cracked. Mom told me Grandma was a liability, she said. She said Arya was a risk. My mother stood. That's enough, she shouted. The judge slammed his gavel. Sit down, he ordered. Natalie continued. She said once Arya was removed, no one would question the money. Silence. The judge removed his glasses. This court finds in favor of the estate, he said slowly. All transferred funds are to be returned. My mother collapsed into her chair. And due to the severity, he continued, criminal charges are recommended. Natalie let out a sob. My mother didn't move. The judge turned to me. Miss Caldwell, he said, your grandmother's foresight prevented irreversible harm. He paused. You honored her. For the first time, I felt it. Not revenge. Relief. As we exited the courtroom, my mother stopped me. Her voice was small. I never thought you'd fight back. I met her eyes. That's the problem, I said. You never thought. She looked away. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air felt clean. But I knew something else was coming. Because consequences don't end at verdicts. They echo. And the next echo would change my family forever. The verdict ended the case. But it didn't end the fallout. News travels fast when money and betrayal collide. Within 48 hours, relatives I barely remembered were calling. Some angry. Some apologetic. Some suddenly concerned about family healing. I ignored most of them because healing isn't loud and it doesn't demand access. Natalie moved out of my mother's house the same week. I heard she was staying with a friend across town. She didn't call. Not at first. My mother, on the other hand, tried everything. Emails. Letters. One handwritten note slid under my apartment door. I gave birth to you. That should matter. I stared at the paper for a long time. Then I folded it and put it away. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. The estate process moved forward quickly. The returned funds restored my grandmother's accounts. The Lakewood property was officially transferred into a trust, with me as sole trustee. Developers started reaching out almost immediately. Big numbers. Big promises. But I didn't rush. Because my grandmother had one last instruction, written in her own hand. Build something that lasts longer than money. So I hired a planning firm. I requested proposals. And I rejected every luxury offer that came in. Then Natalie finally called. Her voice sounded different.
Smaller.
I'm not asking for anything, she said. I don't know who I am without Mom handling everything. I closed my eyes. That was the first honest thing she'd ever said to me. You have to figure that out yourself, I replied. I know, she whispered. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I believed her. But belief doesn't mean access. My mother's arraignment date was set. Charges pending. Her social circle vanished overnight. Charity boards quietly removed her name. Friends stopped returning calls. Power is loud when you have it, silent when you lose it. One afternoon, I visited my grandmother's old house. Empty now, sunlight across the floor. I sat in her favorite chair and listened to the quiet. I finally understood what she'd done. She didn't just protect me. She forced me to choose who I would become, a victim or a builder. I chose the second. 6 months later, construction began on the Lakewood property. Not a mall, not luxury condos, a mixed-use community center, affordable housing, small business spaces, a public garden. The press called it unexpected. I called it intentional. Natalie sent me a message the day ground broke. Grandma would have loved this. I didn't reply, but I saved it. Then one evening, my mother showed up. No warning, no makeup, no confidence. She stood outside my building, hands trembling. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I just want to understand why you didn't destroy us when you could have. I thought about it. Because destroying you wouldn't build me, I said. She nodded slowly. I raised you wrong, she whispered. I didn't correct her. Some realizations need to sit. As she walked away, I felt something lift. Not closure, freedom. Because revenge stories aren't always about watching someone fall. Sometimes they're about rising so far above it that the fall no longer matters.
But there was still one thing left.
One final decision. And it would determine how the story ended. The last decision wasn't about money. It was about legacy. The trust board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. City officials, community leaders, legal counsel, people who spoke in bullet points and percentages. They expected a presentation. They didn't expect a story. I stood at the head of the table, hands steady, heart loud. The Lakewood project is fully funded. I began. Construction is on schedule. But there's one remaining matter. Eyes lifted. Pens paused. The trust allows me to designate a final beneficiary role. I continued. Someone to oversee community programming once the build is complete. A council member smiled. You'll be appointing yourself? I shook my head.
No.
The room murmured. Because this was the moment my grandmother engineered. The one she left entirely to me. I thought of Natalie, stripped of shortcuts, learning the weight of consequences. I thought of my mother, facing a future without control. And I thought of the girl I used to be. Quiet. Overlooked. Assumed harmless. I'm appointing an independent board, I said. And one trainee position. Who? Someone asked. I paused. Someone who understands what it means to lose everything and rebuild honestly. The meeting ended in approval, but my decision wasn't finished yet. That afternoon, I visited Natalie. Small apartment, bare walls, a life reset to zero. She looked surprised to see me. I'm not here to reopen wounds, I said. I'm here to offer work. Her eyes widened. A job, I clarified. Entry level.
Paid.
Accountable. She swallowed. Why? She asked. Because Grandma believed consequences should teach, not just punish, I said. And because I won't become what hurt me. Tears filled her eyes. I don't deserve it, she whispered. Then earn it, I replied. She nodded. The final decision was harder. I didn't tell anyone when I made it. I simply signed the document. A single page. Filed with the court. Requesting leniency. Not forgiveness. Not erasure. Just a recommendation. My lawyer called me an hour later. Are you sure? He asked. Yes, I said. This will reduce sentencing. I know. He exhaled. You're choosing mercy. No, I corrected. I'm choosing control. The night before the sentencing hearing, I couldn't sleep. Not from doubt. From understanding. Revenge had gotten me here, but it wouldn't take me forward. In the courtroom, my statement was read.
Clear. Calm.
Unemotional. I acknowledged the harm, the breach of trust, the need for consequence. And then I asked the court to consider intent alongside impact. My mother didn't look at me. Natalie did. The judge listened carefully. When he ruled, his voice was firm. Reduced sentence. Mandatory restitution. Permanent removal from financial authority. My mother exhaled like she'd been underwater for months. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited.
Questions flew.
Do you feel vindicated? Was it worth it? Is this revenge? I answered one. This was never about revenge, I said. It was about telling the truth and building something better with it. I walked away. The Lakewood project opened a year later. Children ran through the garden. Local shops opened their doors. A plaque near the entrance bore my grandmother's name, and one more line beneath it. Built by Aria Caldwell. People clapped. Cameras flashed. But the real ending hadn't happened yet. Because stories like this don't end with applause. They end with reflection. And the final moment was still waiting. The real ending didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened in silence. The Lakewood Community Center officially opened on a quiet Tuesday morning. No press. No speeches. Just sunlight pouring through glass walls and the sound of footsteps on new floors. I walked through the space alone before anyone arrived. The cafe smelled like fresh bread. The garden was still damp with dew. Children's artwork already lined one hallway. This wasn't revenge. This was proof. I stopped in front of the plaque. My grandmother's name gleamed softly. For the first time since the will reading, I felt at peace. Natalie arrived later that morning. Not dressed to impress. Not pretending. She wore a staff badge now. Earned. Temporary. She stood beside me, hands clasped. I didn't think you'd come, she said quietly. I almost didn't, I replied. We watched people walk in. Use the space. Laugh. I think I finally understand what Grandma meant, Natalie said. About being quiet. I nodded. Quiet doesn't mean weak, I said. It means listening. She smiled sadly. My mother didn't come. She sent a letter instead. No excuses. No blame. Just 3 lines. I see you now. I hope one day you'll let me know you. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry. Because some endings don't need replies. Months passed. The project thrived. Small businesses grew. Families moved into stable housing. The land everyone once called worthless became the heart of the neighborhood. And me? I stopped being the girl at the far end of the table. I became someone who chose her future deliberately. One evening, I sat on a bench in the garden as the sun set. A child ran past me, laughing. And suddenly, I realized something. If my family had never tried to erase me, I might never have learned how powerful it is to write your own name back in. That's the real revenge. Not taking something from someone, but building something they can never control. Before we end, let me ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated, ignored, written out of someone else's story? If this story resonated with you, do me a favor. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to the channel Silent Revenge Lab for more stories where quiet strength wins in the end. Because the strongest revenge is a life lived well.